Headline news most affecting Chilliwack this week. Flood watch on the Fraser. The new year will usher in a public hearing on your property taxes. The Army invades Cultus Lake, but it's okay. They're supposed to be there. And big plans for a facelift at Chilliwack Golf Club. We'll have more on sports. Our special guest this week includes the FERD Chair and Chilliwack Councillor Jason Lum in the year-end edition of Councillor's Corner, Chilliwack City. All right, Chilliwack, let's get started. A flood watch is now up for the waterways in the Fraser Valley, this all due to the rapid snow melt. Added to that, a king tide on the coast and all the river ice between the Mission Gauge and Hope. So it's advised that you stay clear of the riverbanks for your own safety. More information can always be found online. All you have to do is Google the BC River Forecast Center. Now, while sandbags are available in Hope and Abbotsford, the city of Chilliwack is still, quote, monitoring the situation. Chilliwackians may start the new year with a property tax hike of 4.48%. Inflation and supply chain issues have had the major effect on the city's bottom line. A public information hearing is set for Tuesday, January the 10th. That'll be the 6:30 evening meeting at Council Chambers, as well as online on the city YouTube channel. A background will be posted next week on the city's website agenda to give you the nuts and bolts. It is the annual military invasion of Cultus Lake, and don't be alarmed, this has been going on for years now. It dates back to the now decommissioned CFB Chilliwack, and actually before that too. The Department of National Defence are moving more than 250 reserve soldiers from across Canada to join 39 Combat Engineer Regiment based in Chilliwack to conduct what's called Exercise Paladin Response. It's on now until New Year's Eve. It's to provide primarily part-time soldiers an opportunity to practice bridge and raft design, planning, and construction. Recycling Christmas trees is always a challenge, and once again, before you leave them on the roadside for a pickup, please remove all the tinsel and the decorations. Now, go to your local district or city website for more information on recycling and pickup. Let's go back to March of 2022 and the long list of potholes that had to be repaired from the 2021 flooding and then the January 22 ice storm. Well, it's time for a new list. With the recent snow and the freezing rain event, social media is once again filled with blistering and somewhat obscene criticism when it comes to potholes. Email the city with pothole concerns, but when it comes to highways 1, 7, and 9, actually those emails should go to the Ministry of Highways or email Anderson. Check that Lotto 649 ticket because somebody in Chilliwack won $100,000 in the, and how about a Christmas present, the Christmas Eve, December 24th draw. Now, as of airtime, we still don't know who won that jackpot or the $1 million jackpot from a draw that was about a month before that. Okay, now that Hope has all the Rambo hoopla behind them, and we know we'll hear about that shot, comes the next biggest thing, the next great event for Hope. 11 o'clock in the morning, New Year's Day, Main Beach, Kakwa Lake for the refreshing dip. Yes, the polar bear swim. And no, you don't have to jump in. Just gawk at everybody else and post your pictures on social media. And Cultus Lake will have their own New Year's Day plunge. That'll be at the Jade Bay Boat Launch. That starts at noon. Operation Red Nose back on the roads for New Year's Eve. Also, BC Transit will be running. And yes, unlike Vancouver, you will have to pay for transit. Google your area for details on what will be available. A few days ago, we had a chance to sit down with City Councillor and FERD Chair Jason Lum for another edition of Councillor's Corner, Chilliwack City. This is the annual year-end review of where Chilliwack was at and what 2023 has in store. Here's that interview, and after the interview and our break, we'll take a look at sports. chillTV's News of the Week continues with our year-ender Councillor's Corner, Chilliwack City, with City Councillor and FERD Chair Jason Lum, as we go over what has been a weird year. And right off the top, and it's a top 10 list, but not in any specific order. This time last year, we were shaking off the dust when it came to the floods, and then we didn't realize at that time we were going to have an ice storm. A year later, the recovery, and I know that city staff has just been going in overtime. Your thoughts? A lot of effort. I can only imagine some of the conversations in the hallowed halls of Chilliwack City Hall.
Right. Well, and thanks for acknowledging that, Don, because still 1 year later, we are very much in recovery mode. And recovery has obviously happened, as fast as we can here at City Hall, but a lot of stuff is really, kind of out of our hands here, and we rely on a good partnership with the province of British Columbia and the federal government. But here at City Hall, our staff have been incredible. They've worked at over 35 sites repairing different roads, washouts, trails, infrastructure that was damaged in the atmospheric river last year. And so, the big ones, obviously, Camp River and Hope River, those roads need repair. Majuba Hill out in Yarrow, some major washout damage there. Veta Road, some slide damage and massive washouts there with culvert repairs. And, it's the work that's being done is absolutely incredible. And these are folks that are just been working around the clock. So I'm so thankful for all the work that city staff have done.
I know you've taken the heat, council's taken the heat, the mayor definitely takes the heat. The paving projects over the past year, and of course, down at Vetter. Is it almost over?
Well, we're kind of a victim of our own success here in Chilliwack, because we're a place that's so desirable. People want to come here, and so our infrastructure really needs to grow to accommodate that. The big marquee project this year obviously was the Vetter widening. Yeah. Again, working with other outside agencies, BC Hydro, around moving poles and that kind of thing. So, the project did take a little bit longer, I'm sure, than people wanted it to. But the important thing is now we've got the beautiful 4 lanes, center lane, street lighting, sidewalks, all those improvements that people are enjoying. And it is going to be cutting time off people's commute. It certainly does cut time off mine when I'm coming into City Hall. We've done that. Obviously, people are aware of that one, but also about 23 other projects around the city. Roads all across the city up into Ryder Lake, out to Hopedale, Yale Road, Nowell. There's quite a few roads included in our asphalt rehabilitation, our paving projects, and a bunch more to go next year.
The homelessness issue, and there were 2 major projects. One just recently announced on Trethewey. It's going to ease the situation somewhat, but I can only imagine that there's got to be some other sites that you're looking at, but this is where other pieces have to come involved with BC Housing, with the province, with other organizations. How are we doing there?
Well, again, that issue, the issue of homelessness, remains one of the top issues that City Hall, again, works very closely with the province on. This year, obviously, in the recent months, council resolved not to enforce our zoning bylaws. To allow for 3 temporary winter shelters to get set up. It's minus 14 out there right now. With wind chill. It's up to minus 30. So the most important thing for City Council and City Hall is that we get people off the street, people who are experiencing homelessness, off the street and into somewhere safe and warm, keep them alive, and get them fed. And then with the wellness center, the concept there is to really wrap services around, get them connected to people who can get them into more permanent housing. These shelters are stopgap. And City Hall has worked really hard with the province of British Columbia to zone land, to get development permits in place. There's a project on Rowett that's been waiting for almost a couple years right now, and it sounds like it's going to continue to be delayed a little bit. But that's what we need. We need more permanent housing for people. We don't need these small pilot projects and temporary shelters. We need people to have permanent, warm, safe housing.
This year was an oddball for the Frechette, and that also meant Mosquitos. Do we have any predictions of what we're looking at next year, or is it just way too early?
It's early, but I try not to predict, especially when it comes to mosquitoes. This year, obviously, the very high prolonged Frechette, and it did result in a pretty tough mosquito year. That, of course, is something that Mayor Popoff gets to send me all the complaint letters, because it's not actually the city of Chilliwack that does mosquito control. It's the Fraser Valley Regional District.
And you are the chair.
Our staff and contractors at the Regional District are working hard. We're a city surrounded by
water,
rivers
yeah.
and lakes, and basically ideal breeding ground for mosquitoes. So we have to get out there, and our contractor gets out there. They do treat for mosquito control across the region, and we'll continue to monitor that and to try and get the best bang for our buck. We're not going to ever eliminate all the mosquitoes in and around the city of Chilliwack, and so it's important just to kind of treat them and to manage them as best we can, so people can actually go out and enjoy the nice weather when it comes.
One thing that I know that has always been a pain, and DFO brought down the hammer, Gill Bar, and it's that area has been, we thought was secure, and people have been able to somehow get through it. Is this now a permanent thing? Or has DFO, Department of Fisheries, actually said anything to you?
Well, DFO has put access control in there right now, so they've set up a locked access gate to Gill. The big thing is they want to protect that sensitive fish habitat. That is we're talking about the heart of the Fraser, and some of the things that were coming out in the media last year with people ripping around there in 4x4s, driving into spawning channels, driving into the river. You've got a whole bunch of uncontrolled access there, and unfortunately it kind of turned into the Wild West. And so I support DFO, and I support the efforts by the federal government and looking at protecting the Fraser. Like I said, that's ideal salmon spawning habitat, and people have to be mindful that we can't destroy it. Now, I also believe that there's a long-term solution there, and that requires getting people to the table to sit down to discuss it. It means getting First Nation partners down. It means the city. It means the regional district. It means all the stakeholders involved, environmental NGOs, and sitting down and discussing what the future of Gill is. It means the sport fishing industry, the recreationalists, and it probably won't be the city of Chilliwack because the scope is so big there. Right. We'd be looking to the province or the feds, maybe the regional district playing a part there, but certainly hope that we'll see opportunity to look at that in the coming year.
The leisure center transition from to YMCA seemed to be a bit of a bumpy ride in that transition. Is that now kind of ironed out, or?
Yeah, all the reports that I've got recently are that things are starting to smooth out a little bit. I mean, lots of headwinds there. Obviously, changing an operator of a major facility, a number of major facilities, is not an easy task. And so to have the Y in there, obviously they're an experienced operator. Also, council helped by increasing some of the wages to lifeguards. This wasn't something unique only to Chilliwack, having challenges with recruiting lifeguards. COVID kind of hit everybody the same way, and what it did was it stopped some of the training, stopped some of the swim lessons, stopped all that stuff in its tracks. And these were kind of exacerbating effects where we didn't have as many lifeguards and access to lifeguards. But it was clear to us, and the community helped make it clear to us too, that there was some challenges there, and we needed to start addressing them. And so I'm looking forward to the transition. The Y is doing some really cool things. We partnered with them to create some grants to help support people who want to train and become lifeguards. So we're trying to get that pipeline and get more people in and training to become lifeguards so we can start to address some of those challenges. Are we there yet? Probably not, but we're moving in the right direction.
A lot of park upgrades. Little Mountain it's really cool to see the stairs going in. I would assume that's going to be the big project to finish for the next year.
Yeah, the Little Mountain Nature Park is obviously another big, exciting thing in Chilliwack, and again, a whole bunch of community support for that. The city owns some land in around there, and there was some upgrades that we were able to complete this year. We also did some really cool multi-use gaming places, and we did some work on the pump track. It was so popular, the big pump track, that we actually had to build a novice one. And I got to give a shout out to the Mount Sham Rotary Club, because they actually contributed, I think, about $75,000 to that project. So keeps the little ones off of the massive big pump track, and or it gives a small pump track for for guys like Slingerland, who had
Yeah.
trouble on the big one last time.
Yeah, the morning guy over at JR Country. Climate action plan and single-use item reduction. Thorny issue because we said goodbye to plastic bags, and was that the big hot button issue for it seemed that I was hearing and seeing on social media that was probably the most complaints you were getting?
Yeah, there was some confusion, I think, around that. But again, I'm really proud of the what the city's done here. I mean, the city of Chilliwack adopted 2 climate action plans, one for our corporate operations here at City Hall, and then one for the broader community. Obviously, the single-use item bylaw was one of the key pieces of that plan. And now you've seen recently federal bans on single-use plastic items. So Chilliwack was a little bit ahead of the curve of something that was coming anyways. But there were some challenges in working with some of the small businesses, trying to find that line where we accommodate, but we also get rid of some of these single-use plastic items. We're trying to drive broader change here. And, it's a huge challenge. Single-use plastic items are a big challenge. They clog our waterways. They result in a lot of litter across the city, and it's something, frankly, that we can do without. So there will be some changes coming again in April, and you know what? I look forward. Council's asked recently to call on the province to give us a little bit more data back on how these private companies who are charging the minimum fees and collecting the minimum fees and keeping the minimum fees for these single-use items, what they're doing with those. I'd love to see that money be invested back into sustainability in the city and sustainability items, corporate sustainability at each of these individual places, because quite frankly, a lot of people are confused. They think we're collecting that fee at City Hall, which we're not.
Yeah, it's not going to the coffers. EV charging stations, we're making progress on that?
Yeah, another big piece important under our climate action plans, and that is electrifying some of the city, so giving electrical vehicle chargers. I think we're doing 24, 25 of those around the city. I know Tourism Chilliwack's got a number. We're going to have some here at City Hall, some of the new parking lots downtown. You know what? It's an important thing. Again, the federal government making some announcements recently that I think they want 1 in 5 or 20%.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, being electrified in the next number of years. So again, we're trying to get ready and prepare for that.
And finally, accessibility, inclusion. The Pride Parade or the Pride events this year were amazing. Anything coming down the pipe that we can talk about for 2023? I know there's Chilliwack really prides themselves as, especially the last 5 or 7 years, we have seen this shift in focus, and it's been a positive shift. So what do we see now in 2023?
Yeah, well, there's been some really important legislation that's come down from the province of British Columbia around accessibility, and the city took it one step further, and we're creating our very first accessibility and inclusion committee of council. And I'm excited because I've been appointed by the mayor as the first chair of that committee, and Councillor Shields will vice chair that committee with me. We have some really, really fantastic people that are joining us on the committee, and we're actually interviewing a number of other individuals here, so we should have our first inaugural meeting of that committee coming up in early in 23. But as you said, there's so many grassroots events around the city that are promoting accessibility, inclusion, diversity. There was the Streams Multicultural Dinner that just happened last week. That looked like a blast. You touched on Pride and some of the banners, the mural festivals. It really does seem like there's a lot of energy, and it's not just being driven by City Hall, but it's being kind of supported, incubated here at City Hall, and then there's lots of people in the community that are just taking advantage and taking the ball and running with it. And so I'm excited to see what this committee does, and you know what? We're also going to be developing under the legislation our first ever accessibility plan for the city of Chilliwack, which will be interdepartmental. It'll touch every department in the city and make some really good recommendations on how we can improve accessibility here in our own corporate infrastructure.
Now, you can't say that 2022 was boring. Jason Lum, City Councillor, FERD Chair, thanks so much.
Hey, you're very welcome, and thanks for being here. And just I hope everybody has an opportunity to enjoy the holiday season and get a little bit of downtime before 2023, because it's going to be another busy one.
Thanks again, and you're watching News of the Week. Cultus Lake's Reece Howden was dominant in racing to a first-place finish at the FIS Ski Cross World Cup Championship in Italy. With the sun breaking through and the Dolomites peering down, Howden led from start to finish in each heat, including the finals. The win vaulting Howden to the top of the FIS Ski Cross World Cup standings that was heading into the holiday break. So the next race for Reece is not for a couple of weeks, January the 20th. That'll be in Sweden. Members of the Chilliwack Golf Club have approved a golf course redesign plan created by Lobb and Partners. Now, the focus of the redesign is to create holes that appeal to a wider range of golfers, that's a nice way of saying bad duffers like me, while also improving operational efficiency. Maintained areas will be reduced by 30% to 25.5 hectares. The number of bunkers reduced by 11 down to 46. New forward tees will allow natural grasses requiring less maintenance to fill the spaces between the teeing areas, and then will also be giving a contrasting texture. An increase in short grass areas elsewhere is designed to improve playability. While the routing stays the same, 5 new greens are proposed. Others will receive some minor upgrades. The bunkers will be relocated to increase their relevance and redesigned into new shapes and new styles, giving the entire course basically a really cool aesthetic update. The existing chipping area will be converted, allowing a 19th hole to be created so the club can keep as many holes open as possible during construction. That's expected to begin in the new year. The holiday break is over for the Chilliwack Chiefs. They're back in action on Friday night at the Coliseum in a tilt against the Langley Rivermen. Meanwhile, the Pacific Junior Hockey League is dialed in for the upcoming 2022 Winter Classic Showcase in Richmond. That event runs until New Year's Day at Mineru Arena in Richmond. That's all available, by the way, live online on Hockey TV. Scouts are expected to be in attendance. These players are able to show off their talents in front of Junior A, CIS, and college scouts from across North America. This includes the Chilliwack Jets, the Abbotsford Pilots, and the Mission City Outlaws. chillTV weekend weather with Cari Moore. Now, Cari, last week we sent you out into the wild wilderness. Okay, it was the frozen parking lot. It was rather cold. It won't be the same this week, will it?
The weather did get crazy last week, and now we're waiting for the ugly snow to melt. We might see the sunshine on New Year's Day with highs of +5, but there is a 60% chance of more snow midweek. Happy New Year, Don.
Thanks, Cari. If you'd like to participate in reporting news in Chilliwack and you have a story you think we should know about, you can always send us a note and video and pictures to news@chilltv.ca. We'd love to hear from you. That's the news this week. It's been a wild ride for 2022. Hopefully your 2023 is a lot better. Have a great new year. I'm Don Lehn.